Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the webinar today. Today I'm going to be covering off on the whole expert to influencer journey and 12 key skills to attract new clients, increase sales, and leverage your personal brand to become an industry influencer. So before I get started, I just want to double check everybody can hear me. If you haven't used the GoToWebinar control panel before, you'll be able to see over on the right-hand side of your screen where you should be able to see where you can capture some questions. You can write your questions in there, and you can also, you'll see there's an option to raise your hand as well. So I'll take some questions at the end. But before I get started, I want to make sure that people can hear me. So I'm just going to check in here. Awesome. Hi, Mel. Thank you. Loud and clear. Excellent. Hi, Gabor. Glad you can hear me loud and clear. Wonderful. Terrific. Hi, Gian. Awesome. And Alex. Hi, Alan. Welcome. Great to see you there. Hi, Ryan. Oh, all the way from the US, my good friend Ryan. Hello. And all right, so good. I'm pretty safe to say, and Beck's on. Excellent. And I can see that everyone can hear okay. So wonderful. All right, terrific. So I'm going to be recording this today. So, and you'll receive a link to the recording, and I'll keep it up for the next 24 hours in case I go too quickly and you can't write fast enough. All right, so I've got heaps to cover, and I'm really excited because this is the first of the series that I'm going to share about these 12 key skills. And one of the things that I found is that when delivering this is there's a lot here to deliver in an hour. I could take a week doing all this stuff. So bear with me, we're going to go pretty high level, and then you're going to have the opportunity to be able to register for any following events if you want to have a look at them, and I'll be covering off on some extra things. So, but the real two key things that I want to really give you today are this whole expert to influencer journey. And you've probably heard about, the people who are subject matter experts, people who know their stuff. But there's this, how do you sort of do that positioning that moves you over into having more influence or as an influencer? And in this case, I'm going to say you might have heard the term influencer being somebody in social media. Maybe you might see them on Instagram and they might be models and they're holding onto protein shakes or something like that. And that's a different kind of influencer. We're talking about influencers who are experts in their field, who can position themselves and really be known for knowing something. So there's two things I really want to cover for you today. I'm going to give you lots of opportunity to ask questions, but I want to cover off on how do you stand out and really get positioned as an industry leader and authority. And the second thing that I'm going to cover off is how you can access more speaking opportunities, sell more programs, and work with your dream clients. So in the time we've got together, what I'll ask you to do is, if you have got questions, you are most welcome to pop them in the questions box. I'm going to stop and at the end and answer all those questions. And but feel free to pop them in, and so I'll check them towards the end and make sure I cover everything. So a little bit about, if you haven't worked with me before, or you're wondering, how did you get into all this? Well, I did a marketing degree, and then I moved into human resources, and I spent a lot of my time helping people progress their careers. So I did a marketing degree and then moved into HR. So I spent most of my time marketing people, but particularly in a career sense. And then we had what I started to notice was that most of the people I was working for career change actually were needing to go out on their own and become entrepreneurs for two reasons. One is it was more suited to what they needed to do, or there just weren't the jobs there. In 2012 in Queensland, we had around 17,000 people from the public service lose their jobs, and I did a lot of outplacement for that. And so as a result, I really started to help people set up their own practices and businesses, but most of that was really around their expertise. But to have your expertise wasn't enough. I had to really help them to become an influencer. And so some of the things that I've done since then, and one of the things, even in my own practice, was that when I started my business, one of the problems was that I lost my savings all on something called Google AdWords, and Google AdWords is fantastic. It's just that I wasn't really educated on it, and I worked with someone who was supposedly an expert, and I got a bit burnt, but I really didn't want to go back to a job. And so the things that I'm going to show you today are the things that I've learned that I had to really grow my business. I started off particularly with LinkedIn, was the way that I was able to grow it at the beginning, and then the rest of these 12 activities are the tools that I'm going to show you that you can do. So since then, I've gone on to work with around 20,000 people. I think we're well above that now, but on their personal brand. So that's through workshops, individuals, at conferences, and doing lots of activities and things like that. So and that's been over the last 10 years. So I've also been voted number 22 in the best branding blogs by FeedSpot, and I'm one of 12 LinkedIn small to medium business advocates and influencers in Australia. And if you're frustrated with LinkedIn at the moment, you can vent on me. I'm not paid by LinkedIn, but I think we all have a love-hate relationship with it. I've created the lead generation indicator, which is the world's first diagnostic that measures marketing gaps for consultants, speakers, coaches, and experts in their field. And I'm going to give you a link a little bit later today to give you access to that you can find out your own. I'm also a mentor on Thought Leaders Business School, where we work with experts in their field. And so as if they're turning over 500,000 to 1.5 million with one to two staff. But I also do work with people who are beginners in their journey and not earning near that, but just needing to get started. I'm also on the panel for Queensland State Government for Advancing Women in Business, and I'm on the panel for the Small Business Grants. So it's a bit like Shark Tank, where they have a series of mentors and we provide them feedback on how to use their grant. I'm the host of a podcast, the Jane Anderson Brand You Show. When it launched, it hit number 1 in marketing and management. I've worked with a really broad range of clients like IKEA, Lego, Commonwealth Bank, Deakin University. I work with a lot of research institutes, universities, because experts are often doing the research in there, and the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines. So Bill Gates donates most of his money to them, and worked closely with them, and a lot of medical practitioners, so in the Australian Medical Association. And I've just completed my 4th book, which is The Proof Has Come Back from the Printer Today, and that's what I'm going to be covering today, is about the expert to influencer journey. So I reckon there are probably 6 problems that I see that really prevent experts from growing their practice. And I don't know if you found some of these. You may relate to some of them. I know I certainly went through it. And so I think the first one is, the biggest frustration is obviously finding and attracting customers. How do I find these people? How do I get these people to come to me? Part of that is positioning, but part of it is also, you have to be able to reach out and get in contact with them and find them. So where are they? And also, I think the other challenge is, how do I work with the clients I want to work with? I think sometimes we get caught in the wrong clients and we want to work with the right ones. The second challenge I see is where experts are really struggling to increase their sales. So there are a few problems that are either pricing problems or volume problems, or not maximising their sales enough. And trying to work out, is it my sales conversation? Is it my offer that I'm taking to the client? Have I got my pricing wrong? Sometimes, pricing is a big part of your brand, and sometimes that can be out. So that creates a whole lot of confusion about, well, what aspect of my sales process is not working. I think the third thing that I see is really that attention in a noisy world. We've had the average person's gone from 2 hours a day on watching TV now over to 2 hours a day on social media. And so you could blame things like maybe Married at First Sight. I don't know if you've watched that show. It seems a few people have mentioned it to me. But things like, it could be Home and Away, or those really bad funeral insurance ads maybe. But the key is really that attention and being able to cut through noise. I think the research that I saw recently is around the average person's getting 200 emails a day. That data's out of the US at the moment. I don't know if you're getting that kind of volume, but people are just in overwhelm. But there's so much information coming in. Is trying to work out, how do I cut through all that noise so that I can stand out and get that customer's attention? And I think this is number 4, not number 3. I think the next one that I see a lot is the real challenge we have culturally, which is the tall poppy syndrome in Australia, where it's not cool to stand out. It's, we can feel a bit like, well, if I'm putting myself out there and I'm marketing myself as an influencer, then what are people going to think of me? Do they think that maybe am I trying to look like a know-all, or I'm chest beating? So, I don't want to look like that. So I think I just want people to come to me. I don't want to have to put myself out there. And because it's daunting, and particularly because of the cultural norms that we have in Australia. We're a pretty laid back bunch, and that creates its own challenges. And then the next one I think that I see is really time. I see, as you probably might know if you're in your own practice, is that there's only one of you. You've got to fix computers. You've got to, you've got to do the invoicing. You've got all these things. You're trying to deliver. You're trying to sell. You're trying to create your programs or products. You're trying to do your marketing. It's so hard to do it all. And so that return on time and making sure that every single activity that you're doing is going to get that return is just so important. So, and quite often we leave the really important things to later because we're operating in this urgent chaos all the time of, hurry, I've got to get this out. And so quite often our practice can kind of stall and really flatline because we're not working on the things that will get to grow it. And I think the other one I see is around that ownership of my ideas and my thinking. One of the things I find when I'm working with people is their concern is that if I put my ideas and my thoughts down and use that to grow my practice, if it's through content, then people are going to take my ideas. So I don't want to put anything out there, and my competitors are going to be watching me. So what happens is we actually put nothing out there. Or at worst, we start to engage ghost writers who are writing stuff that just becomes noisy and just actually doesn't have enough substance to it and doesn't position you, and it just becomes top 10 tips on how to do blah that somebody's just researched and regurgitated. And so we have to make sure, how do you get that balance of your ideas but not putting your business at risk? And I think the last one is really that confidence is, if you're out there and you've been trying to do certain things, I've tried blogging, or I've tried speaking at events, or I've tried search engine and optimizing my website, or I've tried using LinkedIn, I've tried doing all those things and nothing's working, then that really impacts on your confidence, doesn't it? So when this was certainly what happened to me when I lost my savings, was that I thought, well, I'm obviously doing something wrong. I'm hopeless at this. I don't know what I'm doing. But it was just that I didn't have a system or a process to follow. And so that I made sure that I followed the right steps at the right time. And in fact, since discovered that something like AdWords was way too early in my journey, there were some other things I needed to do first. And that would have built my confidence much more. So before I keep going, I'm really keen to hear, I wonder, in your world, what do you find has been the hardest part about growing your practice as an expert? So, has it been that lack of sales? Has it been, so if you want to pop your answers in the questions box. So has it been, just pop it in there. So has it been number one? Has it been, the finding and attracting customers? Don't know how to get them. Has it been the sales? Like you've been getting in front of people and you're selling, but just the numbers aren't quite high enough. What would they be? So I've got a few people starting to respond here. So number one is, someone's put number one. So Ryan's got number one. Okay, so that really finding and attracting new customers. Joanne's got so exposure that's not too costly. Absolutely. So Facebook ads. I tried Facebook ads, but, they're so expensive. Ashan's got generating leads. Yeah, just being able to, how to get those actual leads coming in. How do you get to talk to more people? And I think that, it's really quite often the combination of a lot of these things. Some others have said, Tony, generating leads from scratch, if you've got no list, no data to work with. Since said growth on Facebook, I'm just trying to get more people to be following me on social media. Beck says getting a foot in the door with potential clients, sometimes willing to give a smaller agency a go. That's really, that is hard because you're competing with some of the bigger players. And she talks about where it feels like competing with some of these really big, larger competitors. And others and key clients, they have other suppliers, so you feel like you're trying to compete with someone that they've already made a decision to work with that person. So thanks, Alan. That's certainly something that we see a lot. And Mel's also mentioned here, a good one, someone here is around knowing what to charge. So that's a really valuable insight. I think that really does have an impact on those sales. Sometimes, and even making that shift over to clients, perhaps if you're working with a market that isn't commercially smart, perhaps for you, and maybe you're working with clients that are not going to help you grow your business, but you're hanging on to them because you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go and chase this other market because what if I don't get paid? It's just easier if I stay with them. And so you're constantly in this grapple. So thank you so much for sharing. That's fantastic. You've got some awesome insights there, and I can certainly empathize with some of those challenges. They were the things that I've had happen as well. And I think that there are probably 4 things I really want to make sure I cover for you in the time we've got together. So we're going to cover what are the 4 specific types of customer that you need to access to grow your practice. And they sit in 4 specific quadrants. So I'm going to give you those, and it's going to be a new lens to really see your practice or your business through. The second one is I'm going to show you the 12 key skills. I won't be able to go into them in any detail, but I'm going to give you some tools that you can go away with and measure your own in terms of your own practice in these 12 key skills. These skills are going to show you how you can leverage your expertise and really stand out as that industry leader. And despite, as Beck said, you might be competing with the big guns, but this is going to position you as the industry leader as opposed to a commoditized product. We're also going to show you how you can leverage that content and get you to think about how you can really think once and use often so that you can use the multiple platforms that you would have in the fastest way possible. And the last one is I'm going to quickly just address some of the social platforms. Social is a part of what we do, but it's not everything. But the question I'm often asked is, which social platform should I use for my practice? So I just want to check in with you as I go to be able to give you all this. Is it okay with you if I'm going to talk fairly quickly, but I'll give you the recording so you can come back and watch it. So I want to check with you. Is it okay if I talk reasonably fast? I'm going to ask also, is it okay with you if I get you to interact? So I'm going to ask you some polls and some questions. So if you could just let me know if it's okay, give me a thumbs up to say, yep, all good, we'll do that. Okay, thanks, Joanne, thanks, Ryan. And the third thing I'm going to share with you at the end, if it's okay, is quite often what I find at the end of these webcasts is people want to know how they can work with me after this. So I will just share with you, if you want more help, here's what I charge, here's a program that I'd suggest. But if it's not relevant to you, that's totally fine. It's not a sales thing or anything like that. It's just purely, if you need more help, here's how I work. So does that sound okay with everybody? Everyone's got, yep, cool. Okay, so let's get into it. All right. So I want to first of all give you a case study of a client that I've worked with, and her name's Rachel Burke. And just to give you a bit of an idea about what we did with her. Now, ironically, would you believe, so Rachel is a sales expert and a really good sales expert. And I know a lot of people have done her programs. And she came to me and she said, you know what, my expertise is in selling. So if you can get me in front of more people, then I can sell, no problem. But she said, my problem is I'm not a marketer. She said, I don't know how to get more people to talk to. Once I talk to them, we're fine, but I just don't know how to get more of them. And so what I did with her was work through even just one, it was actually just one part of these 12 activities that I'm going to show you. And so here's someone who is already has a really successful practice, but she just needed more and more clients. So what I did with her was really got her to shift over. She was really positioning around being an expert as opposed to an influencer, and she wasn't conveying her message well enough. She wasn't particularly visible. She wasn't getting in front of new people easily, and she wasn't educating her audience. So what we did was it just purely got her working with her content. And content, I mean as in blogs and articles and things like that, and really got her database working. And in her case, we really started with LinkedIn and then went across the other platforms and then integrated it into some of her other activities. And even just on her posts, so she had an increase, it was about a 9,000% increase in her views, 7,000 increase in likes, a big increase in comments, about 2,500. And ultimately, in the end, her sales increased 66% the quarter that this work was done. So I just did a 90-day intervention. So most of my work with clients is usually a 90-day intervention just to put the new systems in place and empower her, and she had a support person helping her. And so they now run those systems and these 12 key skills that I'm going to show you. And that 66% was actually only one or two of the activities that I'm going to show you. So she's done even more since then. And there's certainly the things that you can do that I'm going to show you how to do this. And why does all this matter? Well, why it matters is that by 2020, 50% of the workforce will be self-employed. Now, there are two impacts for that right now if you're an expert in your field. One is that you've got this whole wave of people who are coming. And so those people who are going to stand out are those people who can position themselves now as being known for knowing something and being that influencer or that thought leader. And the other reason is 50% of the workforce looks a bit like India at the moment. And so this data is out of the US labour data, and we do know that Australia will be following suit, and certainly we see it more and more. So the jobs of the future really are things like freelancers. Organisations are hiring project-based workers. And when you come to hiring project-based workers, the people who are the most competent and who are the influencers are the ones that stand out when they're deciding who to work with. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know if you have a celebrity crush or somebody you really admire or someone whose expertise, that you really follow. And I would say there's a whole bunch of them, but a lot of them my clients actually and people we work with in thought leaders. But one person that I tend to follow a lot is this gentleman, and his name's Dr. Graham Codrington, and he's a South African-based futurist. And I'll follow most things he says. And he wrote an article. He was interviewed for an article which was in Fast Company magazine in 2015, and it was the most read article of the year. And in that article, he talked about the key skills that are required for the future of work and for the next 10 years. And he talks about that with these what he calls on-demand workers, which is this 50% of people are going to be self-employed and organisations needing these on-demand workers. So what it's going to mean is that workers will result in an increased need for individuals to brand themselves and set themselves apart from the competition, because otherwise you become commoditised, right? So he says that to do so, you're going to need a new set of skills related to self-management, self-promotion, relentless marketing administration, and self-development. So there's no doubt about it. This is certainly, I think we're feeling the impacts of it now with people trying to grow their practices. But the interesting news is that there's more to come. And when I think about it, this is my niece and nephew, Sasha and Luca. And when I think about the future of work, I think of them, when they were born. Most aunties will probably buy like booties and things when they're babies. I bought their domain names when they were born. So probably doesn't sound very exciting. But, my biggest fear is that my gorgeous niece Sasha, that somebody out there is going to have a bad reputation. Maybe they might be a porn star called Sasha McPherson or something. But my fear is that I didn't do something about that and prevented or protected her name, because I know that the future of work that she's heading into is what we're starting to see now. So there's two other reasons why this matters for you to be able to have a look at these key skills. So number one is around 90% of a purchasing decision is complete before a customer calls a supplier. So in other words, before they call you, there's a whole lot of decisions that are made that you don't even hear about. I was reading some research the other day that in the past, we used to go to 5 different car yards if we were deciding to buy a car. And now we just go to 1.5. The 1.5 kind of works. But we don't need to go to car yards anymore. There's car sales, and I can go to Gumtree, and I can go to all these websites that I can look at cars. So all I have to do is go and inspect it. So there's a lot more happening in terms of decision making before we hear from people. They don't pick up a bunch of numbers and start calling around anymore to compare. They don't have time. So the way that people buy nowadays has changed. So the old way of selling was, we would do cold calling, we'd qualify leads, and then we'd do a sales demonstration. Now the new way is in the world of, if you're positioning out of expertise into being an influencer, is that, first of all, it's our networks and social networks, but things like our databases. The question here is, who do you know, is the question. The second question is, now how do I need to educate them? So by educating them creates that awareness that maybe they haven't had that insight that they have this challenge at the moment. And the third thing is, then I actually need to engage them. So this isn't just necessarily likes and comments on social media. This is about, how do I actually get in front of them, and how do I start to have a conversation with them, realizing that they need help. And if we can do that, then we're going to be able to grow our practice. So, and if we don't do that, what happens is we become pigeonholed. So you become commoditized. So people will have the perception about you, and they do, possibly currently, where, oh, you're a leadership expert. Oh, you're a social media manager. Oh, you're a marketing consultant. And if we're pigeonholed into a category that we don't necessarily want to be bought in, we end up having it have an impact on price. And so we can feel a bit commoditized. So it feels a bit like toothpaste on the supermarket shelf, where, you can see this lady over on the left-hand side. She looks really excited about buying toothpaste, or the Gillette shaving cream there. But what happens is, we stand there, or the customer stands there, and they say, well, I don't know which one to buy, so I'm just going to buy whatever's on special. So what happens is, we're competing with all the other brands and all the other experts that are around. So how do you stand out, and how do you be able to position yourself against that sea of sameness? So what I want to ask you here is, if you're an industry influencer, I'm going to ask you to have a look at where you think you might sit here. So if you're an industry influencer, I find that people are sort of somewhere on this scale. So at the lowest level, someone who is invisible. So this is the type of positioning or the type of influence they have. So when you're invisible, you're actually really judged, which is that pigeonholing. If people don't understand, or they can't find any information, they'll make their own assumptions about you. And so the problem is that for most, I find, who are invisible, they're just a little bit lost. They often don't know what's wrong. They just know that their business isn't growing, or they're not selling. The challenge here is, and the focus is that they just need a system to be able to follow, to be able to get some progress. Now, the amount of leads they're getting, in fact, I find that they're sort of deteriorating because the people who are taking their market share are those people who are doing this work up above the line. The second one is somebody who's a little bit inconsistent. So I've seen clients like this lately where their message is a little bit confused. So they're putting different messages out in the market, sometimes because they can do a lot of things, but quite often it's because they're not quite clear either on their message or how to get their message through. And so here the focus is really about that message. And if we get that, then they start to have some impact. Now, at least what stops happening is we stop going backwards. And now we can start to move forward. So the other one that I sometimes see is somebody who is a bit of an inside secret. So this will often be someone, they've got some information around, they've got some content, but they're not easy to find. They're a little bit hidden. They're hard to access. So I haven't got phone numbers. We haven't got insights. We can't really get to know you. And the challenge for them is that they sometimes their confidence is a little bit low and they're not 100% convinced that what they have to say is correct. And they're hesitant. Their focus really now is around leverage and really amplifying what they have to say so that we can increase that visibility. And if we can do that, they're probably about a quarter of the way where we'd need to see them. So the next one is someone who I'd say is an instructor. This one is someone who is a subject matter expert and they know a lot of stuff about something. So they might be a leadership expert, they might be a productivity expert, they might be a performance expert. They might be quite busy. And the challenge here is that their productivity is quite often this is about where their time is spent. Their time is often spent on the doing, as opposed to the execution of all their programs or delivering. But they're not spending time on growing and positioning as the expert in their field or moving through to being a thought leader. So if they're at this level, quite often we see people like this who are contractors, people or who are selling at a little bit low price. And so it's because they are commoditized. They look like the toothpaste on the supermarket shelf. So what we need to do is really focus in on their uniqueness and identify what is it that sets them apart. And then at the result of that is they're really differentiated. Now, if you're someone like a leadership expert, we're often splitting hairs because there's, say, lots of leadership experts out there, and we have to really make sure that we get you really positioned so your unique proposition is the thing that sets you apart. And you're about 3/4 of the way there, I reckon, in terms of the leads that can start to be happening. But at the top, to really start to be an influencer, we want to really position you through your thought leadership and you to be known for knowing something through being a thought leader. Once you're at this stage, then you've got your focus on the right things, and we need support to be able to get your some of the administrative functions implemented and things like that. So at this point, the business starts, or the practice starts to grow quite quickly. At that point, we're now focusing on leverage. So leveraging time, leveraging the team, leveraging your content so that it goes across multiple platforms and in multiple different ways that it can be absorbed by your clients or audience. The best thing about this is that the result is you've got really high trust, and it means that your sales conversations are super easy. So when you get in there, that when people wanting to talk to you, you've got that positioning, and once we've got all that, then your leads are at 100% potential of what is possible. So before I go any further, I'm really keen to find out, based on this this ladder, which one would you say you are right now? Are you 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? So I'm just going to hold for a sec. So now what I'm going to do is actually, I remembered you should be able to see a poll come up here so we can see where most people sit. So this should be up on your screen. So you'll see here there's a quick poll. Which level of influencer would you say you are right now? So just select one of those. Are you an influencer? Do you think you're more an instructor, an inside secret? Do you feel like you're inconsistent or a bit more invisible? So everyone's coming through. Looks like everyone's done. Okay, lovely. And I'm going to share the results here. So the result here is we have nobody feels like they're an influencer at the moment. We've got 38% saying that they're an instructor. We have 25% saying they feel like they're an inside secret. Another 25% feeling a little bit inconsistent, and 13% feeling a little bit invisible. So all these 12 skills I'm going to show you will be relevant to all of you. Depending on where you are, you may not need to do all of these. I don't always necessarily have to say you have to do all of them, but if you really want to really have an impact and really go hard on this influencer space, then you'll be able to do that. So thank you for filling that out. Okay, let's have a look here. All right, so now you know where you are. Whoops, where are we? Then what I would say is I think this is a little bit like dating. I think influence is a bit like dating. I tell the story about a date I went on years ago, and it was a girlfriend of mine said to me, you know, you should go out with this guy that I work with. His name's Andrew. He's really nice. I think you get along really well. And when I got there, you know, I said hello, and he had this backpack on, and I said to him, oh, you know, if you come from the gym. And he said, no, you know, you never know. Everything might go really well. You've got to be prepared for these things. And I thought, oh my gosh, I thought it didn't even occur to me that something like, and I said, oh, I thought, you know, he was joking. Like, I just laughed. And, you know, when someone's, you know, when someone's joking, but you think, I don't know if they're joking, maybe they're being serious. So I said, oh, right, sure. So you've got, you know, change of clothes, you've got deodorant, your toothbrush. And he opened up his bag and he said, yep. He said, yep, I've got my change of clothes, got my jocks, got clothes for work tomorrow. So I think this is what happens sometimes is when we're trying to grow our practice is that we're ready for a relationship. We're ready to get started. We've got our backpack on. Let's get in there. Let's get underway. And what happens is not everybody's ready for a relationship. Not everybody's ready to get married right now. They're really just wanting to get to know you. And so what we've got to do is to get that positioning is we have to really help people get to know us. And you're treating your movement from an expert to an influencer a bit like going on coffee dates. You're helping people to understand what it is that you bring differently, because if you can do that, and it's the same with this person. I didn't know them. I didn't know if I could trust them. How did I know if they're not a serial killer? How did I know that they're not going to, you know, I don't know. You see all these terrible stories about people who've, you know, stolen money from them or all those types of things. So, you know, people want to protect themselves. So you want to know that you can trust this person. And that's often what we sometimes forget. So I want to give you a couple of examples, and then we'll get into these 12 things. So to give you an example, this is someone who, I don't know if you've heard of Justin Coulson. So Justin is what he did. So he had already quite a lot of trust in the market. So Justin is a parenting expert, and so he's featured in the media a lot. So he really has come through that journey and is at probably now at the heading into the top of his game as a parenting expert. Some of the challenges for him was really about his sales. So he was understanding how the media worked and all those types of things, and blogging, and he had good products. But in his case, we really needed to leverage things a little bit better so that he could get some more sales. So he speaks at a lot of conferences, but it's all about family and parenting. And you can jump on his website and have a look. So in his case, what we did was did some work around some of his online strategies. And within 4 weeks of making a couple of modest tweaks, so the advice I gave him he was able to increase his online revenue about 10 times. So that happened really quite quickly. There were some really simple things that he was missing. He didn't really need a huge amount of help, but it was really just fine tuning some of his work. So they were just really simple. He said simple, clear, direct strategies that increased his impact and influence. So someone like that is usually, I'll often just fine tune some of the things they're doing. However, in some other cases, this is another lady, Karen Smith. So Karen is a photographer in Brisbane who I've used, and a number of other experts use her. And she does a really good job, and she really understands working with experts in their field. Her challenge was that she was struggling to grow her business. It just sort of had stalled, and she was a creative who had never really been taught how to run a business. So she was sort of very intuitive in her approach, and just sort of doing what sort of felt right, and she had done a good job. So that had got her business to a certain level. But now she really wanted to be able to grow it so that she could help more people. And in her case, so she was, I did a half-day mentoring with her and got her to implement some strategies after that. And in her case, so she was 4 days, we'd done a month, and then 4 days into that new month. So she filled up her calendar very quickly. She only had 3 days of availability left after that. And her average sale increased between 25 to 100%. And it wasn't so much really about her increasing her pricing. It was more about her being able to communicate well and become more an influencer so that she could whoops, I've got a message to say the poll is still here, so I just need to close that. Thank you for the message. So in her case, what we really needed to do was just help her to communicate her message more effectively and really educate the market on what was really best for their business, and leveraging their time and leveraging her time. So everybody won. They got really great value, and she's grown her business and now able to help more people. So how do we do this? And here are the 12 key things across 4 quadrants that you really need to keep in mind as part of your practice and being able to grow it. And these 4 things are the things that I've done with Rachel, Justin, we assessed his through these activities, and also Karen. So if you think about it, you've got people out there who know you, and you've got people out there who don't know you. And then so if you think about it, like there's a whole bunch of the market that do know you already, but there are some out there that don't know you. And there are others out there customers out there that don't know what they want, and there are customers out there that do know what they want. So you've got both ends of those spectrums. Now, if you've got people out there who know you and know what they want, then they're just going to call you, aren't they? Or they're just going to email you. So this quadrant is called what I call direct contact. So this is where you know them, they know you, and in this case, you're just going to be able to reach out to them, or they're going to reach out to you. So there are 3 activities. I'm not going to go through them in detail, and you're going to be able to have access to a program here that you can do this. So a questionnaire, I mean. So this is about database management. This is about how visible you are, and it's also about your phone and email call cycles and how you start to fill that pipeline. So that quadrant is probably the most important quadrant, because as Seth Godin, the author of 17 books on marketing and particularly around permission marketing, he says the people who are going to buy from you are the people who know you. So when I'm working with people, this quadrant is where we often start. The second one down here is you've got people out there who know what they want, and you've got people out there that don't know you. So people out there that know what they want, but they don't know you. So they're just going to ask around their network, aren't they? So they're going to say, I need someone to help me with leadership programs, or I need someone to help me with my social media, or I need someone who can help me with my LinkedIn profile and career branding. So who do you use, or do you know someone who does that? Or equally, they're going to jump online and do a search. So the 3 activities that work in here are really looking at your networks, We look at Google search, so your search engine optimization and your AdWords, and your LinkedIn search engine optimization. Now, this is a really interesting quadrant because for some people, they go to this quadrant a little bit too early in their practice and they really struggle. So this one has to be in the right timing of your practice, and it's not necessarily where we'll always start. But it is important to know that, yes, it's still part of your practice, but it's not the be all and end all. I quite often find the clients I'm working with have just focused on this area and they haven't really considered the other 9 activities. This quadrant here, so you've got people out there who don't know what they want, so ignorance is bliss, or they know they've got a problem, but they actually just don't know what the solution is. They're being absorbed by symptoms of what's wrong. And there are people out there that don't know you. So in this quadrant, your job is to build awareness in that market. And to build awareness in that market, so for example, let's say you're an expert in social media, then you need to go and find, okay, well, where do these people, who's the person who needs my help in social media? Where do these people hang out? And I need to get in front of those people, because sometimes they might say, oh, I don't have a social media problem. I've got we've got a sales problem. You're like, oh, we could solve that through some social media. Equally, you might be even something like, you might be, even if you're in health, like you're a chiropractor or a massage therapist or someone like that, that maybe people don't realize that, or it might be energy healing, whatever it might be, is you've still got to go and find those markets where those people hang out and be able to share your expertise. So the 3 things that make this quadrant work, one is speaking. So speaking is really a really key authority, what we call an authority marketing activity, because if you're speaking, you obviously know something. Referrals is a key part of this. So you've got inbound referrals over here, and this is outbound, and proactive connections over here. So this is where you're going out and finding people. A lot of this work comes through sometimes LinkedIn and research and going and finding where those people are. LinkedIn's provided a really great tool to be able to do that. And so we have a whole program, or I have a whole program on that as well. And I do 1 or 2 day workshops just on that, because there's just so much value in it. So awareness is key. And then you've got this last quadrant here where you've got people out there who know you, but they don't know what they want. So these are people who are possibly on your database already. They may already be connected to you through your social media, but they perhaps haven't realized that what problem they have, you might be able to help with. And so for you to be able to get them to see that insight, you really need to educate them on what it is that you do that can help them overcome those problems that they have. So there are 3 things that generally make this work as an influencer. One is if you have a podcast, social media posting, and a blog. So we often go through, sometimes people's blogs don't provide enough insight, or they're not compelling enough, or they're not persuasive enough. And some of the things we'll look at is database open rates, database splits, and also the content plan. I've got some clients at the moment who their social media posting, their educating is they're doing a lot of social media posting, but it's not educating. They're just being a little bit noisy. So what you're going to have access to, and after the webcast today, I'm going to give you access to the lead generation indicator. So this is normally $80, and I'm going to give you access to it today. And you're going to be able to go through and discover the actions in your own marketing activity to grow your practice. So you can find out your own personal influencer score. It takes about 3 minutes to complete, so you'll get the link for that. And you get it's a 15-page report, so it's quite thorough. And you'll be able to, on the webcast here as well, you should be able to see in the documents, there's a document or a handout area that's on your panel, and I've also uploaded a link in there, but I will send it to you anyway after today. So, and I wanted to share with you something, an example of someone who, if you look at a direct application of something like this that increases your leads. So here's well, actually, one part, if you go back and have a look back on, if we think about the social media posts, just for example, plus your content, the way I think about it, I think about that, we've got to make sure that we've got enough content going out to people. And the research tells us that around 10 pieces of content are consumed before a purchasing decision is made. Now, that was from the Zero Moment of Truth study. In the past, it used to be 5 to 7 pieces of content, and now it's 10. And so what I find when I'm working with people is based on whatever programs they're trying to sell, and really, so we have the influencer, positioning yourself as the influencer gives you the opportunity to create those 10 pieces of content, because at the moment all that knowledge is sitting in your head and we have to get it out. And if we don't get it out, then you're not going to get the leads and you're not going to be able to access more growth in those sales. So 10 pieces of content are things like, yes, your blogs, yes, your newsletters. They need to see videos, social media posts. There's all those 12 activities. If you can do that, you're going to be really hitting the mark on the 10 pieces of content. And a good example of this is someone like James. So James Anderson, and he's no relation. So he is an expert in growth mindset and learning agility, habits of mind, and acquisition of excellence. So he's, I'd say, is essentially a growth mindset expert. And one of the things, so he works in the education market, and so he works with a lot of schools, but he also does a little bit of work with corporate too. And so for him, that working with him around becoming the influencer and around his lead generation activity was really being able to, two things, was to maximize the market he was already working with, and to be able to leverage that to be able to access more of the corporate market. So there was sort of really two reasons why he came to me for some help. So what we did was, again, we followed the 12 activities, but there was one in particular that really popped very quickly. And it was because he was already doing quite a bit of speaking. So we focused there first. And he sent me a message afterwards saying this, that so what was happening, he was speaking at a lot of conferences, and he was getting about 10% of his audience wanting to know more after seeing him speak at those events. So there was people giving him his business cards saying, yes, we'd like to find out more. And but after changing his lead gen approach, so some of the things that I showed him to do, his last keynote, he sent me a message, his last keynote, where he spoke with 130 school leaders, he generated 80 leads out of that one particular presentation in the keynote. So some of these things that, whilst we do those 12 activities, there are some specific activities that we take within each of those that increase the leads. And certainly this is what was my experience. Was I remember when I first started speaking, my coach said to me, go and do 250 keynotes and then come back and see me. And I did that, and I was really frustrated because I wasn't getting the leads. So since then I've gone and worked with and watched a lot of speakers to see how they get their leads, and I've created the process in that. So and so we applied that for James, and he said, now I'm almost too busy. So it's a good problem to have. But the thing is that, so he was really working, if we look at that model again, he was really working down here is, yes, he still needed to do some of these other things, but even just that was a really great way, because it was already capitalizing on what he was already doing. So for others who I have as experts, they haven't actually tackled this speaking market, or they want more speaking. And so we have to create them to become more of an influencer so that they can get those speaking gigs. So a couple of things, but to do that, if you look at the Content Marketing Institute in 2015, $118 billion was spent on content marketing. And this year, well, this is 2016, $135 billion will be spent. And I saw data the other day that says by 2020, $300 billion will be spent. So in the content marketing space, the data that came out in December for Australians who are consuming content, less people are writing content because they're saying they haven't got time, but we can't keep up with the volume of people that are consuming it. So they're spending more and more time in social media, online, hanging out in those places and absorbing information. So as an influencer, this is prime opportunity, and this is what you need to do to be able to access those people because they want information. Some of those platforms, I won't go into a lot of detail in social because it's just one part, but if you're Facebook, so a lot of business to consumer, but Facebook has got 65% penetration of the Australian market, which is just phenomenal. And globally, there was an increase of 1 million people just in the last month. But if you've got other platforms like Snapchat is still going through a lot of growth, so it's a younger audience, so in their 20s, whereas Facebook is a lot broader range, if anything, a little bit higher age group, so 35 plus through to grandparents type age and retirees. Snapchat's very young, so if you've got a market that's, that sort of 17, 18 through to 20s through to, late 20s. Instagram is certainly growing phenomenally since they've introduced stories, which is the little round circles that you might see at the top of your screen in Instagram. And that was an idea that they've really grabbed from Snapchat, and it's had an impact on Snapchat's growth, that's for sure. But you've got around 5 million monthly users happening there. And certainly what I've found, I read yesterday that someone had said that Instagram is not good for entrepreneurs, but what I can say is I think I've probably had 4 new clients as a result of Instagram, people finding me on Instagram just in the last 6 months. So so my experience and working with other clients is that Instagram has certainly been useful. So I think I find a lot of entrepreneurs are on there, but people looking at getting help in that space. LinkedIn certainly isn't going anywhere. Actually, data's a bit slow. They just hit 500 million people, I think I saw last week. So if you've seen LinkedIn lately, they've changed the interface, and it's made it more difficult for clients or your contacts to see your content, which is a bit frustrating. But it's not going anywhere. I think we've all got that bit of love-hate relationship with it. I love it. There's times where I'm very frustrated by it, as everybody is, but there's no doubt about it. For B2B sales, there's no doubt about it. You can certainly still grow your practice, and that's often where we'll start before we really even tackle websites for influencers. And the last one is Twitter. Twitter has about 2.8 million users. It's a bit stagnant at the moment. The more people I talk to, they're getting off it. So it's sort of a matter of watch this space. And it works off hashtags. It's still very American. I find a lot of Australians aren't necessarily using it like the US, but it's still around and it's still there. But my advice to an influencer, and to be mindful of the time that you've got, is really probably just look at 3 is the best way to go. And the other thing to be able to leverage your content and really capturing an area of expertise or thinking that you have is something you really need to do is to have a social media calendar. So, write down, capture what piece of content it is or what your area of thinking is or what that article is, and track where you're putting these things. So did it go on Facebook? What date? On Twitter, Pinterest, all these places where you've put things. It's not about necessarily just putting on your website anymore, is finding as many different platforms that you can put it on. But I think a lot of people do it, from what I've seen and working with clients, is they don't do it because they don't have a tool to track where everything is and as a checklist to make sure they've got it all. So I would really encourage you to just do something really simple like this. This is what mine looks like as well. And then you might do that for written content. Then I would recommend you might do it for video and podcasting and things like that. But this is a really great way to start, and it'll help you track everything really easily. So what I'm curious to know is, based on what you've seen there so far, is I wonder is what what are you focusing on right now to grow your practice? So I'm just going to launch this poll because I'm curious to know is are you using social media like for LinkedIn, Facebook? Are you doing sales calls and meetings? Are you getting on the phone and doing those things? Are you proactively doing those things? Are you using newsletters and blogs? Maybe you're using all of these, so you can tick all the boxes. If it's all of the above, that's fine. Do all of the above, and you can tick all those. So I'm keen to have a look and find out. Okay, I think we've got everyone here. Still a few numbers coming through. And okay, I'll close the pause. Still a couple more. I'll just make sure I got everyone. Still more people ticking lots of boxes. All right, I think we got everyone. Okay, and so here are the results. So lots of people using social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. So good, so getting your content out there. Sales calls and meetings, good. So having those call cycles and things set up. Newsletters and blogs. So it's about 60%. So this is, if you're not doing this, this is definitely where you really need to probably consider some of your efforts if you're not doing that already. Influencers at the moment about, unpacking your expertise and your thought leadership about once a week, and speaking at events. Sometimes we can't, it's a struggle to get those events because we haven't positioned ourselves as an influencer. So what gets you those events? If you've written the book, if you've got the blogs, if I can see your presence on social media, have you got influence? And because of the fear for an event planner is that if I put you on a registration page on a website for me to market this event, do people know who you are? Because the event planner needs to be able to sell tickets. And if people don't know who you are, you're not going to get the speaking events. So just if you make sure that if you can write these blogs, it will feed, and then you move in some of that content into your books. It will feed feed your positioning so that you do get more speaking events. All right, so we're on the home straight, and I want to make sure I've got a little bit of time to answer your questions. So if you do need more help, I've put the Expert to Influencer book. You can jump on the website and order it. And I've put, I've got the proof back. It's about 250 pages, and I have put a real step-by-step way to be able to do most of those things. Those things you need to be able to get more speaking events, what are the collaterals that you need, all that sort of thing. So, and of course, so we've covered off on all those, and you can also, of course, access the lead generation indicator. You can download the document there, and also you will receive a link after today where you can access it as well, and you can get your own report. If you would like more help, I'm going to jump to questions in a minute, and if you would like more help, so I can do this online or face-to-face, so I've got the 90-day lead generation strategy, and people that often need some resources. So the real goal out of this 90-day lead gen plan and strategy session is to give you your lead generation assessment. We do a 3-hour strategy and implementation planning session, and so I generally do that. So for me my day rate delivering is generally at 9,500–10,000 per day. So I do this at 4.5 usually is my normal half-day rate. I give you lifetime access to a Facebook group so you can ask questions at any time, and you'll learn from other people that I'm working with. You get lifetime access to my online resources and templates, so I give you any samples that you want. I meant to put those two together. After the strategy session, I find most people need a little bit of time for follow-up. So I just have put the implementation and feedback sessions in there as well. You don't have to use them monthly. If you want to use them every week or every fortnight is fine. And you get a copy of Expert to Influencer. And as a bonus, what I've been doing for people is actually setting things up for them. So set up MailChimp or wherever that might be. I set up the actual lists and the database splits. And in fact, I even have a team of writers who we work with. We write a lot of content and profiles, so we'll even write your first post for you if you really need it. And so if you need that, the value is around 9,600, so it's 4,500 plus GST. So if you want some help, I'll send you the link anyway, and you can come back to me if you need help, but if you don't, that's totally fine. And you are most welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, and so make sure you do that if you haven't done that already. And the next webcast will be on the 31st of May, and I'm going to cover off on the 3 direct contact activities that get you sales meetings. And we're going to cover off on the 3 specific database lists. I don't know why that's black, should be white. 3 specific database lists that experts need. Your 30-second daily routine that needs to be in place when growing your practice, and how to get meetings with people on your list without stalking, hassling, and cold calling. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm just going to make sure I know I've gone. I'll send you the link on where you can register after the webcast today. So what I am going to do is stop here, and I'm going to jump into the questions area and make sure that I have put all the questions. So let's have a look. So we've got, here we go. All right, let's have a look. So questions. So Alan asked, does that mean they know they want a product or type or know which supplier they want? So I assume perhaps back on the lead generation indicator. So that's, if they know what type of product they want and they know what supplier they want, then that's that top right-hand quadrant, which is direct contact. So they know who you are or you know them, and in that case, then you'll still have, you'll be able, they're just going to call you or email you. So that's direct contact quadrant is certainly the most important quadrant to work with. But we also have to make sure that all the other people, the people that are in those other 3 quadrants, we have to get them over into that one, because that's where you have the most influence. So we also have, we've got, thanks. I had a few people let me know that the poll was showing the slide wasn't moving. So thank you for letting me know. A few people had to run. So, and we've got a question, so that's fine. So the question I've got here is, when sharing content on LinkedIn, are you better off with a standard post or sharing content directly with connections you want to target via email? Great question, Beck. So the answer is both. What you might have noticed, there's even a third one, which is, you may have noticed that if you're putting content on LinkedIn as an article, that the viewing of those articles has reduced, and LinkedIn have taken off the notifications area, which is up in that top right-hand corner, which is incredibly frustrating for those people who have paid, I pay for Sales Navigator, which is $1,000 a year, and that was one of the most valuable things on there. So the 3 things that I recommend is share it via an update. So still put the original post on, like you said, like if you put a full post, an article, still put that on there, because it's there permanently and you can be validated even in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. The second thing is share it as an update as well. So updates are getting a lot more views because that notification field has been removed. So make sure you share it as an update, and you can repeat that, whether it's fortnightly or monthly or 6 monthly. So just make sure you repeat it, and you'll get a lot more views and likes and engagement there. And the third one that you've said, actually the fourth one as well, in mail, so sending it. So yes, definitely go to your list and have a look at, to let them know that I've written this piece of content. Here's the link. I thought it might be helpful for you. So definitely do that. And the other one, Beck, is making sure you share it in the groups that you're in. So just have a look at the groups. Make sure you're in groups where your customers hang out, not necessarily where your interests are. So if you're in lots of marketing professionals groups, then the challenge is that that's not probably going to be as relevant. But have a look at, if you work with customers mostly in the retail industry or whatever that might be, go and check out your clients' profiles and have a look at the groups they're hanging out in, and make sure you share it in there as well. So I hope that answers that for you, Beck. So those four spots. Tony's got a question here. Tony, what's your opinion about Facebook advertising to generate email addresses to build databases? So one is a download resource to give value, make offer down the track. Yep, whether it's a course or something like that. So Tony, great question. So my advice is, if you've been doing all the other activities, so if you've been doing particularly that direct contact quadrant, if you've been doing all your call and email cycles, if you're doing all your content and blogs, you're doing all those other things right first, and if you've exhausted as much as you possibly can, then perhaps consider Facebook advertising. So I have interviewed a Facebook advertising expert for the book for that specific reason, because I find two things. People lose a lot of money on sponsored posts on Facebook, and I've done it myself. But if you're working with someone who really understands how that process works, I think there's a better return out of it. But I do say to people, particularly when they're starting, you don't necessarily have a lot of money already in reserves to spend on that stuff. So all the things that are on that 12 points are all pretty much free. You don't have to really outlay anything other than your AdWords if you're doing something like that. But your Facebook ads really counts as that awareness quadrant, and those customers take more in terms of being able to buy. But I know lots of people having a lot of success on Facebook ads, but I'm saying that there's a whole lot of stuff you can do for free first that you're going to have more positioning as an influencer, because it takes time, not just a once-off ad. So I hope that answers that. But yes, you want to get them into your database and continue to nurture and market to that database. I hope that answers that. Alan, is it best to post LinkedIn articles under personal, or set up a business page and post that? So the answer is both. So there are some people who will follow you on a business page, and also you've got another opportunity for 10 pieces of content, 10 touch points. So we generally advise, so for most people, I often find them setting up a business page as well as getting them to do that under their personal account. So the thing is, though, Alan, is that on LinkedIn's a search engine, and when people are looking for somebody who have your skill set, then your business page will not turn up in that search result. Only your personal one will. So the answer is both, because you will have some people who just want to follow you. They don't necessarily want to connect with you personally. So I hope that's answered that for you, Alan. Beck says, thank you. Awesome. I'm glad that answered your question. And Tony says, you've given great advice. Thank you very much. My pleasure. I hope you've had a great rest of your day, everybody. If you have any questions, reach out. We'll send everything through. And if you want more help, please don't hesitate to ask. So I hope you have a fantastic day. Have a good rest of it's Friday, so have a great weekend. And make sure you register. I'll send you the link for the next podcast. So I will see you then.